Oblivion. So I don't mean playing Oblivion, which is never a bad policy. I mean combining Morrowind and Oblivion together. So for those of you who follow my video blog, you know that a few months ago I reviewed Morrowind because I heard it was a fantastic game. And I reviewed it with the overall pack because I realized that some people might not want to play it now with the old 2002 graphics and would want to have an updated version. And the overall pack basically upgrades the graphics so it's up to today's standards. Now, having a chance to play Morrowind now for a few months, I have confirmed that it is a fantastic game. However, there's still a few quirks that drive me a little bit crazy, such as the combat and the user interface generally still is outdated. So I started looking at some other options and I stumbled upon Morroblivion. Morroblivion allows you to play Morrowind through the Oblivion engine. How cool is that? So if you have a copy of the Game of the Year edition of Oblivion and the Game of the Year edition of Morrowind and also the mod, it basically interfaces the two so you can play Morrowind through Oblivion. Now the advantages of Morroblivion are the general advantages that you get with playing Oblivion, and some of the ones that stick out at me are the graphics, traveling, and combat. So I'll talk about the graphics first. In terms of the graphics, in my opinion, the graphics are better in Morroblivion. In the overall pack, the graphics do improve. However, it's mainly in the outdoor scenes. Some of the character models still look a little bit funny. They still look like they're shrugging in some cases and have a pickle up their butt. And some of the indoor scenes basically where there's not sufficient light still look like they could use a little bit of work. Whereas with Morroblivion, you're using the graphic engine of Oblivion. Now even though Oblivion was built in 2006, its graphics are still very relevant today, and overall I think the overall experience of graphics is much better with Morroblivion. In terms of combat, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Morrowind sucks. It's boring, it's just stupid. Okay, so first of all, when you start off and you're leveling up your character, a lot of times you're swinging and missing. So you're swinging your sword and you're not actually connecting with your opponent. And when you level up, it's just pure button mashing. You're just pressing button after button to, just attack, attack, attack. There's no real thought process involved. Whereas Morroblivion, you got the Oblivion engine for combat, so it gives the illusion of arcade action combat. Now, it's not Kingdoms of Amalur, it's not Demon's Soul, but it's not bad for an RPG. And you also have a smarter AI that doesn't get stuck in certain places. So overall, I think the combat in Morroblivion is much better and makes for a much more interesting experience, especially at the early stages and the early levels. In terms of travel, it drives me crazy with Morrowind that you can't fast travel. So if you've been to a location before and need to return to it, you have to basically walk all the way back. In some cases you can use the Silt Strider service or a transport service which will transport you to a general area which is closer, but you still got to do a lot of walking. Also, what drives me crazy is the fact that there's no map marker. So when you go on a quest in Morrowind, you got to actually pay attention or remember or know where to go. You got to actually think. I don't want to think. I'm just lazy. That's just a lot of work for a game. So Morroblivion is like Skyrim, like Oblivion, which basically when you go on a quest, it does make it easy for you by pointing you in the exact direction you need to go to complete that quest. And to me, that's just a luxury that I'm used to. Call me lazy. Now, in terms of the installation process, for the most part, Morroblivion wasn't too bad. Basically, if you're familiar with modding for Oblivion, it's pretty similar. I had to adjust the load order, which the mod was actually at the top of the load order sequence, and basically that got it working. But there isn't too much to do there. It does have a bit of an installer there, and all you need is the Game of the Year edition of Morrowind and the Game of the Year edition of Oblivion, and the mod pack, which will put the two together. Now, the biggest downfall with Morroblivion is that it's still considered in its beta stages, so that means there are some bugs. But I still give it about a 7 out of 10 in terms of its playability. But when you consider this is something that's been made for free, I give it a 9 out of 10 in its production values. So if you're looking for something that's a little bit more stable, I would go with the overall pack. But overall, Morroblivion still has great majority of the quests are still playable. The main quest is still playable, so I think it's still a good option if you're playing both games following different paths. Because again, Morrowind is that big a game. And at the very least, you could consider the Morroblivion a massive expansion pack for Oblivion, because you can actually either start a new character from Vonderfell and play Morrowind from start to finish, or you can take your experienced character in Oblivion and travel from back and forth between Cyrodiil and Vonderfell, and do some additional quests. So if you're serious about gaming, if you're serious about Elder Scrolls, I say check out Morroblivion. It's really worth checking out. You got nothing to lose. You only will add to your experience with Morrowind. So check it out. Morroblivion. Happy gaming.
Ah!